And we are back here at the Tracy Take. We took a little hiatus, but we are glad to be back with you. I am Tyler, and this is my brother, Ryan Tracy, and we are the host of the Tracy Take. Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It feels good to be back doing this podcast. So, how are you doing?
I am doing good. We just had to take a little break. As you guys can tell, my set has changed up a little bit. We got rid of the big Tracy Take whiteboard, but we are working on something here to have a nice little background for myself. But in a new house now, got a new family member on the way here, which will be here in a couple weeks. And so there's been a lot of stuff that I had to take some personal time on. So, but we are glad to be back. Thank you for joining us. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button, like this channel, and also share this video with your friends and family. And Ryan, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
We are just about a month away from the start of the new season. I can't even believe it. I still, it seems like yesterday when Eli Apple absolutely kind of blew the Bengals' chances to win the Super Bowl. And then Jalen Ramsey almost did the exact same.
Know. Yeah.
The Bengals had a high school offensive line in front of Joe Burrow. So when they just got absolutely decimated. You know what I'm talking about, right? On that last play. I showed you that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The picture of Jalen Ramsey
falling down and Jamar
Chase's shoelaces right as Aaron Donald hits Joe Burrow.
I know. If he had half a second more and Joe Burrow could have just launched it up there, that would have been amazing. Because Jalen Ramsey's kind of a scum. He's not really that great of a guy.
He's good. He is good. He had a bad game, but he is good. If you look at his resume from his first 6 or 7 years in the NFL, he's probably a future Hall of Fame corner. But he had a really bad Super Bowl. Probably,
but that's one of the things when you look at him. It's like, everyone's great in the regular season, but how? Yeah, I mean, like, what do you do in the big times? You know what I mean? Jim Kelly, for example, the Buffalo Bills quarterback, Hall of Fame career, nothing against him, met the guy, super nice guy, but he's never going to be as good as Troy Aikman because he lost to him twice in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's they won the game, but Jalen Ramsey almost single-handedly cost them the Super Bowl. But we're going to be seeing him actually here in a month. Is it September 6th? Is that the first week? Is that the first game?
I thought it was September. Might be the 6th. I think the first Sunday is September.
Isn't that 10th. What I said?
Yeah.
Well, no, but it's a Thursday night game because they're hosting the Bills.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the 8th. I bet it's the 8th.
Yeah.
It's the 8th. Okay, there you go. Yeah, and then September 11th is going to be the first Sunday game for a lot of people. That's going to be a very memorable day. Especially for this 2022 season. But we will talk about that in our first week predictions later on. But with this, we talked a lot about them last year, and we thought on our first episode back, there's a lot of stuff that has happened. But the 5 main quarterbacks from last year, the 5 quarterbacketeers, as I like to call them, from last year's first round draft. And it's going to kind of highlight and just see what their expectations are, because a lot has changed, especially on their team, them as a person, and just kind of see what our expectations are. So starting off with Trevor Lawrence for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think he had an underrated year last year, all things considered. He lost the receiver, DJ Chark, in the second game. So but he is now with the Lions. So I was very curious to kind of see how that relationship would have grown, and see even if that would have been a better year. But he did get Christian Kirk, and they are also bringing back a lot of talent as well. And so, if I'm not mistaken, I think he threw for 3,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions last year. Not horrible, not great, but also what a weird year that Jacksonville had last year, because with the whole Urban Meyer scenario situation. I'm very curious to see how their new coach, Doug Peterson, comes in and helps out with the situation. What are you kind of expecting from Trevor Lawrence? Do you think he's going to stay about the same? Do you think he's going to do you think Jacksonville's going to be competitive, because of Trevor Lawrence's growth?
I don't think Jacksonville's going to be competitive. I still think they have a long way to go. That defense is still going to struggle a little. But I expect Trevor Lawrence to have a much better season. Mm-hmm. I think he underperformed last year, and granted, he had a lot going on around him. I'm not sure his coaching staff was the best, especially with Urban Meyer there. But my biggest concern was in the latter half of the season, weeks 9 through 18. He only threw for 4 touchdowns over 10 games, and 2 of those came in the Colts game in week 18. So that's a bit concerning. A bit concerning having 2 touchdowns in 9 games. I would have liked to see more of a Justin Fields like progression, rather than just a one-off at the very end of the season. That was really good to see. But overall, I do expect him to have a bounce back year in Jacksonville. From what I've heard in camp, he looks really good. He looks very poised. And I actually want to say he had a pretty good outing in their first preseason game this past weekend. So,
yeah, I wonder when did Urban Meyer leave? Was it around week 13, week 14?
Let me.
And I bring that up because when you bring up that stat saying he's only threw 4 touchdowns in the second half of the year, it to me, let's see here, 2-11 start, so week 13 or week 14. For me, I mean, there was a lot of locker room issues that definitely started to become public.
He coached 13 games there.
He coached 13 games there. So, but that's right. I don't know if they had a bye by then or not. It doesn't matter either way.
Yeah.
But I wonder how much of that was game planning on why they were not very successful offensively. He was starting to bench James Robinson, or is it James? James Robinson, because the left tackle's Cam Robinson. He was starting to bench James Robinson, and he's a very underrated running back in the league. Then they had several injuries as well, as I mentioned with DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault did not pan out. I think still coming into form. He just didn't have as great of a year. But I wonder how much of it the place was just not built for the NFL and how much that hurt them. And so they do now have an NFL coach who has won a Super Bowl. And see what kind of system he brings in. But yeah, I think the expectations are still low. They're definitely still growing there in Jacksonville. I will say they are in the best division if they were wanting to have some weird random upset because the Texans suck. I don't think the Titans are going to be that good this year. Relative, I still think that they can win the division. I don't think they're the favorites. And the Colts, I think, are the best team, but they do have a new quarterback coming in, Matt Ryan. Now he's a veteran quarterback, so I'm rooting for them, and so show my bias. But who knows though? When quarterbacks go into a new system, sometimes it takes them some time to get used to the system. Even though the past 2 Super Bowl winners have been veteran quarterbacks first year in a system, but anyways though. It might not work out. There could be some struggles. So maybe Jacksonville can sneak out. I think though, if they go, because they went 3-14 last year, 4-13 or something like that.
I think 3-14.
3-14. If they can win 5-6 games, I think that's fine. Just like what you were saying, he didn't have that Justin Fields improvement, and I'm looking forward to talking about him here soon. But you could say he almost decreased a little bit just based off stats. I think he probably just stayed steady, but all things considered, I'm hoping that he has a good bounce back year.
Yeah. My expectation for the Jaguars are low. I think Trevor Lawrence can have a good year and the Jaguars can still be 5-12. I just think they don't quite have the talent around them. I think that they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. I don't think that defense is going to be very good. And so I'm really interested to see his stat line at the end of the year and how representative it is of how he actually performed. Because I feel like as we get into some of the other guys on this list, their stat lines might not exactly predict how well that they did. So,
yeah, well, I don't know. I think as we get into some of these other guys, I don't know. Let me think on that one. I'll come back on that at the end. And so, but because like with Zach Wilson, then is it gets like the better his stats are this year, and you see a clear improvement, the better the Jets do, because the Jets I think have more of a foundational talent around him, and
they were also rebuilding for more years though than the Jaguars were. So speaking of Zach Wilson, let's go ahead and transfer over into the Zach Wilson.
I was trying to just segue, trying to smooth segue into it without bringing it up. So good job. So but yeah, like the Jets last year, they were fun to watch. They had the improvements. I think Robert Saleh did a solid job as a coach. I hope this bone bruise MCL strain isn't too damaging. I think I heard now it's 4 to 6 weeks that he might be out. So hopefully, I mean, that'll put him at the cusp of week 1. So hopefully he's good by then. Don't want to, when you see those non-contact injuries, you definitely just want to take your time. But if going to what you're talking, Zach Wilson's stats clearly improve from the year before. If his interceptions go down, touchdowns go up. That defense isn't horrible. I
really like what they've done on defense.
I think that they're going to have a solid year. I mean, I think, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs just because the AFC is loaded, but if they were in the NFC, I would consider them a potential wild card team. For sure.
I still think they're probably the Jets, the Patriots, and the Dolphins are still 3 steps behind the Bills. And you can debate all day where the Jets, Patriots, and Dolphins land in those other 3 spots, but to me, the Jets are primed for a big year. I think if you look at what the Bengals did last year, they brought in a good pass rush. The Jets got Jermaine Johnson. They got healthier in that front 7 on defense. The Jets brought in an elite college wide receiver in Garrett Wilson to pair with Elijah Moore, who, by the way, had the most yards of separation of any rookie wide receiver last year on average per route run. And then they still have Corey Davis. And then they also drafted Breece Hall out of Iowa State and have Michael Carter from North Carolina last year. So to me, this offense looks extremely explosive. And I'm not sure if this young group can stay healthy and stay together. I'm not sure if the Bills in 2 years will be better than the Jets. If they can stay healthy and stay together, because I really like Robert Saleh and I like his philosophy, and I think that this is a team that can really get behind him and play physical, get after the football, and generate turnovers. And so I really like what the Jets are doing here. And to me, I think the Jets have the highest trajectory of any of the teams we're going to talk about today.
I really liked what they were doing. I forgot. I just revisited their draft picks, and I forgot how much I loved their draft this year and then also last year. But they've got all the right pieces. One of the things that you said is super important, that you just can't control it, but staying healthy. And then they're still a young team, and they're a lot more fun to watch than it was a couple of years ago, where they're this old veteran, like a bunch of journeymen mix mash type of team, and there's not going anywhere. There's no hope essentially with those teams, but with this team though, there's hope. You got Zach Wilson, who I think is going to be an up and coming quarterback, and what is going to be an absolutely like star-studded division in that AFC East, as you already mentioned, with Josh Allen, now Mac Jones, Tua, if he continues to grow and pan out and stay down in Miami. I mean, what just an amazing QB clash every single week. It's going to be fun to watch. And where would you put Zach Wilson as the number 2 quarterback in the AFC East?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It depends, right? Because if I'm building a franchise and I have to pick, like, obviously Josh Allen is the number 1.
That's right. Yeah.
I really like Mac Jones, but I think physically he's limited. And Tom Brady was able to take the team to new heights mentally, but he's probably one of the only people to ever be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And like you look at Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, Wes Welker, Eric Decker when he was in Denver, Brett Favre always had good receivers. Aaron Rodgers has had Devontae Adams, Greg Jennings. Like you look at a lot of these guys, like a lot of these great quarterbacks, and they're paired with these like highly touted Hall of Fame receivers. And like Tom Brady has Julian Edelman, Wes Welker. Granted, he has Rob Gronkowski as a tight end, but I just think that's something that is really hard to expect of Mac Jones. And I think if you get a guy like Zach Wilson, if he pans out, he's a top 5 quarterback in the league with his arm strength and ability to go and do that. So that's kind of my view on Zach Wilson. He's a bigger risk, but a bigger reward.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Going last year when we're talking about, and this could be an interesting segue into the next guy we're going to talk about, but when the 49ers were picking, and it's like Mac Jones is your Jimmy Garoppolo, like
yeah,
but potentially even better, younger, might have better arm, etc. And then they go with Trey Lance, and then that's kind of a similar scenario. Is the floor is lower, but the ceiling's definitely higher. And so just wrapping up with Zach Wilson is I do agree. I think that. He's a number 2. Is just if he can stay healthier and just make a little bit better decision making, which I think we saw as he grew up, or just kind of grew into last season.
That is my last note on Zach Wilson. So Zach Wilson started 13 games for the Jets last year. He threw for 2,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 12. He had 12 turnovers, 11 interceptions. 4 of those interceptions came in week 3 or 4 against New England. So that's a third of his turnovers came in one game. And so I think that is definitely inflating his numbers from last year. And I definitely think he improved as the season went on. So, and I know he missed some time there in the middle, but he still was getting those mental reps, getting to watch Mike White play. So,
yeah,
but yeah. So, and then next on the list is probably Trey Lance. Well, is Trey Lance. He's probably the toughest one. Again, not probably. He is the toughest one to evaluate. Even if you look at the top 6 or 7 quarterbacks from the 2021 draft class, he's the toughest one because he only had. I think he took 7 snaps in actual NFL games.
The amount of level of scrutiny and film watching and talk and debate over Justin Fields was last year, or Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, any of those guys that started. But I think particularly in Justin Fields the most, just because of kind of maybe where the team was at, but also his potential talent. It's going to be the same with Trey Lance this year because there's this guy who clearly has flaws. Or had flaws last that we saw because he was only in the D2 school, and now they like Jimmy Garoppolo has taken them to the Super Bowl, taken them to they didn't make the playoffs the year before the COVID year, but then just took them to the NFC Championship.
Garoppolo was hurt.
Yeah, it was hurt, and the whole team was, and then just took them to the NFC Championship, and then now they're saying to Trey Lance, okay, we want you to go and do that exact same thing. So the amount of pressure that's on him. But 2, though, it's the San Francisco 49ers. It is a big deal, and he's now we didn't get to see him really at all last year. So now the whole plan is to give him a year rest, get used to the system, get him up to speed on everything, and then hand him the reins. So now we're going to see how that year was. And there's going to be some growing pains. I think there's going to be people that are going to be super critical of him, but I think the 49ers, obviously they don't want to have this be kind of a rebuilding year. But I also think when you make a decision like this, you don't know what you're going into. So as long as you stay competitive, I think throughout the entire year, and let's say like you just missed the playoffs, but there's some errors, but you see growth in your quarterback, then it gives you, I think, a lot of positives moving forward. If you see him come in and is like a Matt Leinart or Ryan Leaf, and just you don't see improving performance, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse week in and week out, then that's when there'll be some cause for concern. But I say all that though. With Trevor Lawrence, we know what he's going to do, and so he's probably going to be like a little bit better, but nothing super newsworthy because Jacksonville's not going to be anything. Zach Wilson, same thing. He's in New York, probably going to be the same level of kind of scrutiny as he did last year, but a little bit more improvement. Mac Jones, all right, he needs to go to the playoffs. And with Justin Fields, he improved. Like he showed everyone like he improved over last year, and so now Trey Lance is going to be the guy then now who's going to be going through that exact same process just a year later. So
and that's my thing is like you draft a guy, you spend a third, well, really not just the third overall pick, but you trade up for him, give up multiple first round picks for a guy, in my opinion, that the team did not really need. You definitely especially in that draft, you could have gotten so much value at pick number 12. That they just traded back with from Miami. So to me, I think there's a lot of pressure on Trey Lance. I think he's only a 21 or 22-year-old guy now too. Because he came out a year early from North Dakota State.
Yeah.
So I that's a lot of pressure to me to put on a young kid. I'm really curious to see how he handles it. Because like you said, we haven't really seen him play. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny on him because they had Jimmy G. The last 2 years that Jimmy G played a full season, they went to the Super Bowl and then the NFC Championship. So
yeah. The pressure. I think he'll be fine. Like you see kids now. Like it's funny. Like when you watch these old college football or college basketball games. Like there's a freshman. Like shooting free throws, or he's got to kick a 40-yard field goal to win the game. But that was such a different time though, and now guys like it. This has been Trey Lance's job since he was 10. 24/7, 365. Mentally, I think pressure-wise, like mentally, I think he's.
But
there.
It's not the football part of it that I'm concerned about. It's the non-football part. Because like, what happens? All right, he's going to come out week 1. What happens if he throws 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions? He comes in week 2. Oh, Trey Lance is a bust. Trey Lance is all this. Like the 49ers wasted their first round pick. It's like, how does he respond in week 2? Because frankly, at North Dakota State, he never really had that level of pressure. And there are like NFL fans are quick to judge. We've talked about this is going on our second season now. Of talking about this, and like even we can be quick to judge. I remember us talking about Justin Fields last year. That's my thing is like, how does he handle that as a 22-year-old?
Well, but that goes to what I was saying though, and in today's age, like I think you got to have like these kids are trained. They talk about it in college. They talk about it in high school because football is such a big deal now everywhere. Where I think that like criticism, I think they just are now just at this age just immune to just ignore it. They're not on. I mean, they're probably on social media, but like they have the coaches in their ear talking about how good they are, things to work on. And I think all that stuff's just white noise. To me, I just think it's just a big deal in general just to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. So that alone just comes with its own pressure. All the other outside white noise, I that's not the pressure. I don't think that he is going to be dealing with. I just think for the pressure wise is in the game time moment, he just might have some what's it called? Just some learning mistakes, so to say, especially in such a tough division that they're in with the Cardinals, Rams, and well, not the Seahawks. The Seahawks are awful. But so that's the type of pressure I'm talking about. They're like he's one of 32 guys that have his job. And it's a very competitive market to be in there. So it just curious how he's going to be, because if he starts to mess up, they still have Jimmy G right there that they can go put him in, because
reports say that Jimmy G's not going to be on the team for too much longer. So
what is still talking about the Niners, but so are they just going to cut him? Are they just going to try and trade? I mean, because now at this point to trade him
I mean, they'd be getting scraps to trade him.
Oh yeah.
I think by a certain point that like they'll owe him like $15 million or something if they don't cut him. So I think before the season starts that they'll have to cut him. But
yeah, he just won't be on that roster of 53 or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
but anyways, I think Trey Lance, like you said, is very much going to be the Justin Fields of this year. He's just going to be under a lot of scrutiny. The franchise traded up to get him. And I think he's going to have to go through a lot of growing pains. And like you said, this might be like a little mini rebuild for the 49ers. So, But speaking of Justin Fields, let's go ahead and move on to the fourth quarterback taken in the 2021 NFL draft. Justin Fields, we were very down on Justin Fields at this point last year.
Well, I would still say rightly so. You know what I mean? Like,
very much.
His situation was a little bit different because, and actually, I was just thinking, who was the other quarterback that?
Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton. I want to say Nick Foles. I'm like, I knew that wasn't it, but there was there
at one point. But
the Bears were in a very interesting situation, and Justin Fields' situation was more unique than the other four quarterbacks. And with Andy Dalton being the proven veteran, I want to say proven. He was a veteran. But the Bears just went to the playoffs the year before. They were the 7th seed. They had some talent on their team. There wasn't a clear cut, okay, start the rookie because we suck. We need to get him. Yeah. We need to get his sea legs wet. And so he can kind of grow into like the superstar that we know he can be. There was a legitimate chance. And the coach who I'm blanking on, his job was on the line as well.
Oh,
so
Matt Nagy.
Yeah, Matt Nagy's job was on the line as well. So it's like he's like, I have to make the playoffs or I'm fired and I need a job. So his situation resulted in more analysis, more criticism, just because if you want to be the starting quarterback, we're going to have to compare you to the veteran who has been a starting quarterback for his entire year. That's why their situation with Trey Lance is, I think, very similar, because Jimmy Garoppolo has been a starting quarterback now for better half of 7 years or something.
Except
like that.
Kyle Shanahan's his job is not on the line.
His job is not on the line. That's fair. But there's this quarterback has a proven thing of success. And you don't at all. Andy Dalton had some solid years in Cincinnati. I think he started to just get a little bit older, but also the Cincinnati team sucked. On top of that, which didn't help the situation. Anyways, I say all that though. But Justin Fields, though, the second half of the year really started to ramp up, started to play well. And it's fortunate that they're in the NFC, because I think they could potentially make a shot at a wild card run. There's a lot of teams, I think, that are not good teams in the NFC that this year. And the Bears, I think, is one of them. They might be average, above average. But they're going to be in the boat with the Vikings. I would say either the Eagles or the Cowboys. I think both teams should make the playoffs. Just who's going to win the division. The Cardinals as well. I would put the Cardinals in there, and I'll say it. The Saints. The Saints. I know they've lost Sean Payton, but they should not have been competitive last year, and they were competitive. So, so they're in that group of teams. Some of those teams are going to make the playoffs. And frankly, I don't think any of those teams should make the playoffs. The Eagles definitely should. You can almost make an argument that the Cowboys shouldn't make the playoffs. But the Eagles are definitely going to make the playoffs. I think that the Eagles look really good. They look really good. I really like their draft. But I put the Bears in that category, and I think that'd be a huge step for him. It'd be a huge step for the city, because Aaron Rodgers only has a couple more years left, and I think Justin Fields wants to put himself in the best position to then now take over that division when Aaron Rodgers is gone. Yeah,
and that's I think Justin Fields, if he can just continue the progression that he was on last year, I think he will be an above-average quarterback this year. He's not going to be Josh Allen, but I think he'll have a really good season. One of the things I really liked most in college, he was a really good deep ball thrower. And last year in the last half of the season, he had the best deep ball rating of any of the 5 rookie quarterbacks. And I was like, that's wonderful to see because he loves to air it out. He also had like 330 or 360 scramble yards, which is exactly the style of football that he wants to play, and should play with his athleticism. And so I really like kind of what they have going over there with David Montgomery, Darnell Mooney, Justin Fields. Hopefully that offensive line gets a little better. I know they drafted I forget his name he was a tackle from Oklahoma State last year, and they just drafted another offensive lineman this year, I think.
Tevin Jenkins was the OSU.
Jenkins. Yeah. And so I hope that offensive line can be a little bit more stable in front of him and let him allow a run game to get going. But then also give him some time in the pocket. So
yeah, I agree. It should be a fun year to watch him see him grow. I bet his fantasy stock might go up just a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Just a little. So I guess that leaves us with one of the 5 left. So you want to introduce him?
Mac Jones.
All right.
Was that good? Good. Mac Jones, New England quarterback, the only guy on this list, I guess to make the playoffs and start. But it definitely seemed like he kind of fell off last year. I don't know if it was him specifically, but it was the team. It seemed like the team as a whole.
The team as a whole kind of
started to
fell off. They had a week 14 bye or week 13 bye, and then they came out off that and just looked so flat against Indianapolis. And then they couldn't regain the momentum they had on that 7-game win streak. To me too, the defense lost their punch. Teams were getting out to big leads against them. But they didn't make Buffalo punt for 2 whole games. And it was just a poor performance in the back half of the season. However, in the playoff game, Mac in that first half looked like the only guy who actually showed up and wanted to be there. He was amped for that playoff game. He actually came out and played really well. And I actually think that interception on the Patriots opening drive to Nelson Aguilar, that Jordan Poyer intercepted, was actually Nelson Aguilar's fault because he didn't high point the football at all. He completely let the safety come in and just pick it right off the top of his hands. And so to me, I think that there are a lot of improvements that the Patriots have made. But there's also a lot of concerning things that have been coming out of camp. I don't know. Have you been hearing about it at all?
No, I've been hearing about this.
So Josh McDaniels left to become the Raiders coach. The Patriots are switching to a outside zone type running scheme. And the offensive line does not look very good in the run game. They're really struggling to get out in space. And in the preseason game, it kind of backed it up. The running game, it averaged like 3.2 yards a carry. They had no runs over 10 yards. So it's interesting to see that based off of the personnel moves that they made in the offseason. So getting rid of Shaq Mason and Ted Karras, or not getting rid of, but letting them, I guess they traded Shaq Mason. Ted Karras went to the Bengals, drafting Cole Strange in the first round. They brought back Trent Brown and then switched him to left tackle, moved Isaiah Wynn to right tackle. And it's really interesting just to kind of see what they're doing. And another thing too that is a little mind-boggling is, so the Patriots are now at 12 days of training camp, and they've had 2 padded full speed days. Every other day has just been at a walkthrough or jog through pace, which it just seems odd to me. And maybe they're just going slow to help the offense get installed, but they're running out of time. And for me, you're talking about the expectations here for these second-year quarterbacks. I have really high expectations for Mac Jones. I think he set the bar really high for himself last year. But I am really curious to see if New England is going to set him up to meet those expectations.
Well, and that's one, and what you're saying sounds awfully familiar than to just me being a Falcons fan talk about people who are complaining about Matt Ryan for the past couple of years. It's like Matt Ryan wasn't set up for success if you look at the talent around him, because he's just one of 53 guys on the team. You need to have a good offensive line. You need to have good receivers and a good running game. And if there's scheming issues that are going on, that's definitely going to play into a part of everyone's performance. But that being said, though, this is the first time, because Josh McDaniels has been the offensive coordinator for your entire life.
No. He went to Denver.
But he was with New England, though.
Yeah, so he was with New England from like 2009 to 12. Then he went to Denver from like 12 to 14. And then he's been with New England since like 2014.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Your adolescent and adult life is it. But yeah, so you haven't really experienced too much when there is this change in coordinator system, and that really messes with teams. That really messes with guys. I've Matt Ryan experienced multiple over his last couple of years, and then I was listening to him on Pat McAfee when now he's with the Colts and like learning this new system. And every time that they do learn a new system, I mean, it is a big jolt to the system, to everyone's system, because there's not just obviously new plays like how to, like which routes to run on said play, but the lingo, the audibles, it is so in depth that these offenses go into. And so that could be a reason why they're taking it slow, and they don't want guys to get hurt before anything can even happen, so to say, or have a lot of these season-ending injuries during times that don't really matter. But you still got to, well, it's not a month. You got about 3 weeks, I guess a little less than a month till the first game. So there's still plenty of time. Bill Belichick's one of the best coaches in the league. For me with Mac Jones, it's interesting. I just want to see his passing game improve a little bit, have a little bit more yards last year. That with them, they become more of a dual threat type offense.
This is my prediction for the Patriots this year. I think Mac Jones is going to have another Pro Bowl caliber season. I think he's going to throw for 4,500 yards, probably 25 to 30 touchdowns with 10 to 12 interceptions. The Patriots are setting up a system that is going to be much more West Coast style. They're going to air it out a little more. They got in some new weapons, and actually this is the first time I think the Patriots have 7 legitimate NFL wide receivers in camp. Like, they're going to have to part ways with 1 or 2 of them. And that's the first time in like 3 or 4 years that I can actually say that. So I think Mac Jones is going to have a really good year. I think the Patriots are going to suck.
You think the Patriots are going to suck?
I think the Patriots are going to be 5-12, 6-11. I have serious concerns about their defense from last year. They didn't really replace anybody that they left. They're just bringing in a bunch of younger guys who haven't really proven themselves.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Especially as the Patriots started to fall towards the later end of last year and into the playoffs. That was the thing I remembered thinking of. Like, this is a New England Patriots playoff team, and this is probably the worst defense I think I've seen from that team. I've seen some offenses that have made the playoffs for the Patriots that weren't that great, but they worked with it, but because their defense was so good. And this was the first time.
Tom Brady, that's always the great equalizer for the offense.
But even on top of that, though, you guys have had such good defense, especially come January, that you guys can lock down other teams, so where you can win a scrappy game, even though that offense isn't that great, and then you have Tom Brady on top of that. But last year, though, was the first time where it was like, man, you guys cannot stop that Bills offense. I mean, how many points did the Bills put up for 51? Was it something stupid?
Yeah, but that's not even the most impressive part, because you can put up 51 points. Like, you could get a couple turnovers for touchdown, whatever. The Bills, they got the most amount of yards possible. So what I mean by that?
They scored on every drive.
They scored a touchdown every single time they touched the football. They got the ball at like the 6. They went 94 yards for a touchdown. They got the ball at the 25.
I remember that stat.
25 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was an offensive clinic that it was also a beating that I've never seen a New England defense take.
Yeah.
So it was it was hard to watch as a Patriots fan, but I mean,
yeah,
I don't see us being able to beat the Bills. I think the Bills loaded up even more. They mortgaged their future with the Von Miller signing, but
well, because they are in the I mean, that the Bills, the Bills to me, I think are the team to beat this year. Because if you look at their build-up, you look at, I mean, now they are, I think they're better than Kansas City. They should have beaten Kansas City last year, and arguably the greatest football game. That's one of the greatest football games I think I've ever seen. Was that playoff game against them? I think they've only gotten. I need to go back and look to see who maybe left, but I think they've only gotten better. And you know what? If they mortgage their future for Von Miller, and if that means that they win a Super Bowl, I think that they will gladly take it. But Josh Allen, I'm trying to think if there's anyone that's a better quarterback right now than Josh Allen, and I'm including Patrick Mahomes.
I would take Patrick Mahomes over Josh Allen.
You would still take Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I would.
I mean, it's tough. Like, I wouldn't complain about either one, but it's like, 2 years ago, yes, I would have absolutely taken Patrick Mahomes over Josh Allen. Now, nothing against Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen has made that decision much, much tougher. I mean, he is now one of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. I'm trying to even think outside those two guys. I'm trying to think who else. And would you take them two over Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady?
Oh, right now, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. I mean, just like, obviously there's the greatness of both, but now they're so elite and they're both so much more mobile than both of those two guys. They can do the same throws. They can do all that stuff.
Rodgers. So if like
Rodgers is mobile,
Rodgers is mobile, but he's also 37 or 38 now.
I thought he was 39. I could be wrong.
Oh, is he?
I thought so.
So we do have a couple comments, and Raven187 said they didn't mortgage their future. There's the bias. So how the NFL cap works is they paid Von Miller a crap ton of money, and they're not giving him a lot up front. They gave him a big signing bonus, but all of that money is going to have to come out of the Bills cap eventually. They can keep kicking the can down the road pretty much as long as they want, but eventually that money is going to have to come out of the Bills cap.
Sorry, I'm just shocked that we actually have comments. Thanks, Raven187.
Raven187. A couple people watching live.
Hey, so all right. Hi, Mom.
That's my biggest thing with the big contracts is eventually that money is going to have to come out of the salary cap.
Yeah, for me, when I see that contract, for me, I don't really care too much about the money. If you're able to pay him now, it's just the longevity of it. I mean, paying him 6 years, he's going to be 39, and isn't he not coming off, but hasn't he had an Achilles tear or an ACL tear?
Yeah, I think he has an ACL tear, and I know you said
okay. That's not as bad. That's not as bad.
Yeah, and now he's saying $52 million guaranteed. Some of that other non-guaranteed money will still have to come out of the salary cap, whether it's through his signing bonus or if he actually ends up playing for that long. So,
but I can see what he's saying though. Especially then too, is who knows what's going to happen with the salary cap here? Because
it could continue to grow.
Aren't there the TV contracts? I think are about to be coming up here in a couple of years, aren't they? And there's going to be a big time increase, I think, on the amount of money that goes into TV, and so that could then also the owners are going to be wanting to take more of a claim out of that, so that they can pay more players. The players are going to be wanting more money because hey, we're the people are tuning in to see every week. So they could also be having some sort of just maybe looking into the future there a little bit with some of these kind of decisions.
Yeah.
So, what are some of our other comments?
He's pretty much the only one.
He's pretty much is, or he is the only one.
Mac and Zegan Holy Cross, they're commenting, but they aren't really asking any questions. They did ask the timeline for Zach Wilson, and it's 4 to 6 weeks. He has a bruised on the top of his tibia, and then also an MCL strain.
How do you get a bruise on the top of your tibia?
So
and there's but no contact. That's what I'm curious about.
So
like, how did he bruise it without?
So there's actually a really interesting YouTube channel that I love to watch, and it's this doctor who it's like doctor reacts to injury.
Is it Brian Stederer?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I watch him too.
He did a video.
It's amazing. Have you seen? It's amazing. I think it was we were watching the Conor McGregor fight, and he broke his leg, and it was like I think it was 30 minutes later he put a YouTube video up and analysis. Like he always has his tie on and everything. It's like so that means that guy is either always wearing a button down and a tie, or he saw this video happen.
So.
Well, yeah, but doctors also have lives. Like they'll walk around wearing T-shirts.
But they work like 16-hour shifts, and they'll wear like a shirt and tie under their coat. So
it's like I was just watching Spider-Man today. So is it like that for doctors? They have their doctor's coat. They'll be wearing normal people clothes, and then when someone gets hurt or sick, then they'll take off their their shirt and their doctor clothes come on.
Yeah. But so basically what he said in that video is you have your femur and your tibia, and they meet, and that's the knee joint. And then you have your patella, which is like that's your kneecap, and then you have your patellar tendon, and then your quad tendon that connects to your quad. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle you have your ACL and PCL, and then you have your LCL and MCL on the sides. And so when Zach Wilson tried to stop, he jammed his femur into the top of his tibia.
Jeez.
And that
you know how strong your quad and hamstrings have to be to then essentially move the whole bone down into the other bone, like where it just overrode the joint and the patellar. Like that's how strong that stop had to be.
So Victor Cruz tore his patellar tendon. That has to be like 10 years ago now. But so they were doing the math on how strong your patellar tendon is. And just to remind you, your patellar tendon connects your tibia to your kneecap. Mm-hmm. In that little virtual diagram. It was like it took 10 times his body weight. Like it took almost 1,800 pounds of force to tear his patellar tendon. Completely across. And he did it. And I was like, that's just crazy to me.
Well, and that's where I'm curious where, like, obviously 30 years ago, people would tear their ACLs, but it's like you blew out your knee, it's like you were done. But we were nowhere near as big or as strong as mm-hmm. we are now. And now they have
insert a mom joke.
They have no we have like become experts now on like how to get these gladiators like physically fine-tuned for this event to where we just body's bigger and bigger and bigger, but the joints are pretty much staying the same. So I'm very curious if there's a case study that's 20 to 30 years from now to see how many more people have had these ACL injuries, Achilles injuries, etc. But then also how far modern medicine has come now to where you can have Cam Akers rupture his Achilles in July and he's playing in the Super Bowl in February.
Yeah, that is the one injury that I feel like we'll never be able to truly master is the Achilles tear repair.
Because I don't know, like, so
it's so hard to, depending on how you tear it, it's so hard. Sorry. If you tear your Achilles, you can heal it. If you rupture your Achilles and you pull it off the bone, it is so hard to reattach it in a way that you can still be explosive.
Well,
because you have to drill and tie the Achilles into the heel. And I'm pretty sure Cam Akers just tore his Achilles. He didn't rupture it. Kevin Durant ruptured his Achilles in the finals of the Golden State Warriors versus Toronto. Because remember, you saw it like snap off.
Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah. Sorry, no, I'm looking now. Okay, so it just says he tore his Achilles on this. So maybe he didn't rupture. So then what's the difference between a rupture and a tear?
Okay, so when you tear it, like your Achilles tendon like actually snaps, right? Think of it like a rubber band. Like it like breaks in the middle. Yeah. When you rupture it, it comes off the heel. Like you tear it off the heel.
Oh, so it is like, okay. So it is. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So you have the tendon here, but then whatever fibers are actually connecting it to the foot.
Yeah, like that that breaks.
Oh, That sounds awful.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
That to me, I've been fortunate enough. I've never broken a bone. I've had a couple stitches and everything like that.
Yeah,
man, I would never.
Fingers, but
I've
got some messed up fingers. Like my pinky doesn't go straight. That's as straight as it goes. But
I feel so bad for you.
Yeah, that's the worst I've ever done.
I would take 10,000 ACL tears over one ruptured Achilles.
I don't know about 10,000.
The Achilles to me, okay, maybe that was a little bit hyperbolic, but the Achilles to me is the one that is like scary. Like when I wake up in the morning and I'm walking down the steps, I'm like extra careful because I don't want to rupture my Achilles. That's how nervous I am of having that.
Yeah. So
do you have some more comments here?
Not any questions.
Just statements. What are the statements?
Just more. We have comments, not questions. But okay. I don't know. I think it'll be a really interesting year for these 5 quarterbacks. Let's give some superlatives to these guys, right? So, who do you think has the highest expectation? Who do you think is Mr. Overachiever in this group?
Well, those are two different things. Highest expectations and Mr. Overachiever.
Who do you think has the highest expectations?
Who do I think has the highest expectations?
Yeah. Who do you think?
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. Okay.
Yeah, I think Trey Lance. To me, that's an easy one. I mean, like kind of as you said, it's like we know Mac Jones like can take him to the playoffs. Justin Fields is like, okay, just his whole goal is just to improve from last year and just keep improving. Same thing with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. This is going back to what I said about Trey Lance. Is this where he's going to have the most scrutiny this year just because we don't know what he can do. So every mistake, every error, every good play is going to be overtly analyzed just because of the situation that he's in. So to me, he has the highest expectations.
Yeah. For me, I am going to go – I would say Zach Wilson because I think Zach Wilson has the most new weapons around him. But I am going to go with I guess I'll be boring and say Trey Lance because I just think there's a lot of pressure on him to succeed based off of how much San Francisco has put into getting Trey Lance there.
Yeah.
All right. Who do you think has the lowest expectations?
The lowest expectations?
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
I would think just because of he had a full year, so we were able to see the amount of talent that he had. But also, I think going into how awful that organization was run last year, I think coming in now, he's going to have a full slate where he can have this talent or like to show off his talent and improve.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, it's Jacksonville. I mean, not too many people are going to be watching him.
Yeah.
Too much. Because also as well, on top of another layer on top of that is the fact that it's Jacksonville. That market is very low, unlike New York, Chicago, or New England.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields has the lowest expectations because that team is nowhere near ready to win.
Fair, but this goes back to what I said, though, is I mean, Chicago fans, I mean, in 2017, Mitch Trubisky, Matt Nagy were gods. You know, if their kicker could make the field goal, they would be moving on to the next round. And within 3 years, I think 3 or 4 years, maybe it was 2018, something like that, Mitch Trubisky's gone. He's a backup, and Matt Nagy is now like fighting for his job and is now fired. So
I think for me, I think if I look at all the teams and what they've done to tool around the second year quarterbacks, the Bears have done the least of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think the Bears, with the new coach, the lack of bringing in new players, I just think that Bears and their fan base probably have pretty low expectations on the outcome of this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. And then last but not least, which of these 5 quarterbacks do you think is going to be most successful?
I knew you were going to ask that, and I was thinking about it. If he can stay healthy, I think Zach Wilson I'm very close to saying Justin Fields, but I say Zach Wilson just because I think he has more pieces around him to have a more successful year. But with Justin Fields, I don't think he has the amount of pieces around him just yet, which is going to hinder his success. Zach Wilson, I think, and what the Jets are doing, we talked about earlier. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have, or like seeing their whole process develop. And it seems like they just keep on adding great young talent. So I think he's going to be the one that's going to be the most successful if he can stay healthy.
Okay. I think Trey Lance could be the most successful because I think the 49ers, he gets the benefit of being in the NFC. And I know Justin Fields is in the NFC, but he's in the division with the Packers and Vikings. Whereas I think Trey Lance might have an easier road with the Cardinals and Seahawks. I think Trey Lance will probably win the most games and go the furthest this year.
Yeah. Well, he does have the best benefit of being under the best offensive-minded coach in the league in Kyle Shanahan. They have an established, proven system out there. Just like with anything, if they could stay healthy, then they get a really good team. Yeah. So I think he'll do really well also. I think that there's going to be some just beginning errors. Things that Zach Wilson and Justin Fields worked out last year or improved upon of last year while he went through preseason. He had a whole year of sitting on the bench. And I think he did play in one game, maybe two. I'm trying to remember. But still, it's not a full season. Week in, week out, being the guy to come in and start. So I hope he does great. I hope he has a great season until he loses to the Falcons in the NFC Championship. Yeah, right. But yeah, so that's why I think he's gonna. I think all five guys are gonna have good years. I think Trevor Lawrence statistically might have the worst, but I also think he's on the worst team.
Yeah.
So
we do have a question, and it is actually about a quarterback we have not talked about. So Davis Mills, what is your opinion on Davis Mills and the Houston Texans this year?
We didn't really talk about him. He was the sixth quarterback. He was the sixth one, right? Was he before or after?
He was the first pick, or he was the first pick of the third or the last pick of the second. I don't remember.
Yeah. Because it was him, Kellen Mond, and Kyle Trask were the three quarterbacks kind of picked in a row. They're the second wave. Davis Mills, I think he's going to be a starter in the NFL for the Houston Texans. It sucks for him too because that was such a weird year last year for him. He had a solid year, all things considered. Actually, let me look up his stats.
Yeah, I have it right here.
What are his stats?
11 starts, 2,600 yards, 16 touchdowns, 11 turnovers, 10 interceptions.
Wait. 11 turnovers, 10 interceptions. You mean 11 touchdowns?
No, 16 touchdowns. He had 11 turnovers, 10 interceptions.
Okay, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 2,600 yards on 11 games. Who else started for the Texans?
Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, yeah, because he got hurt, and then Davis Mills had to come in. Oh, okay. Yes, I remember that now. Yeah. See, okay, so that's a perfect example. No one cares about the Texans. and they're just in that weird stage because of how Bill O'Brien and then also Deshaun Watson kind of screwed those franchises over, that they're just in a very interesting point where they're just kind of playing games. I feel like rebuilding, trying to set up the franchise. But I think Davis Mills, all things considered, he should have another good year. I hope he starts every single game. 11 games, 2,600 yards. That's looking at
206 yards a game.
200.
I'm looking at it. I didn't do that math in my head. Sorry, 205 yards a game.
Now, it should be more than that if he had started 11 games.
So sorry. He played in 13 games. Started 11.
Okay.
So his yards per game was 205.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that makes sense then.
My thing is, if you look at Trevor Lawrence, right, he had coaching issues, lack of talent around him. You look at Justin Fields, coaching issues, lack of talent around him. Zach Wilson is just on a really young and rebuilding team.
Mm-hmm.
He also was injured for half the year. Davis Mills, barring Zach Wilson's injuries, had all of those things. And he was still the second best rookie quarterback last year.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying Davis Mills is like this sleeper quarterback from the 2021 draft that's going to become a Hall of Famer. But I'm really curious to see what the Houston Texans can do with him, because he has shown the ability to create with very little. Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks were his two top targets last year. Nobody even knew who Nico Collins was.
I got him. I'm on a dynasty league. I got Nico Collins as a guy on my bench because I do feel he was starting to improve. Brandon Cooks, you want to talk about one of the most underrated receivers that no one talks about in the league is Brandon Cooks. But yeah, like that's for the Texans organization with where they're at, that's got to be nice having a quarterback who like, hey, we can stick this guy out there. No, he's just going to be consistent. He's not going to like embarrass the franchise or blow games for us, but he's just going to be consistent. Yeah. And so we can use all these other pieces, all these other draft picks that the Cleveland Browns give us.
He'll use a normal-sized towel when he gets his massages from the sports physicians that are on the Houston Texans staff. Like, he just is the total package. So I had to throw a Deshaun Watson. We haven't made one Deshaun Watson joke this whole time.
How pissed off you have to be for Davis Mills? Like, if that is like, let's say like that's your kink. And then it's like, but then the guy before you ruins it for you. So now you can't go. The Houston Texans won't let you use their name for hotel rooms. Just go book massages. I mean, that you just got to feel for the guy, because
I know,
it's like one bad apple ruins it for everyone else, you know?
Yeah. So, but all in all, I really like Davis Mills. To put it this way, I invest in sports cards as like a hobby, and I have a few of Davis Mills cards because I have high hopes for his career if Houston can ever get their act together.
You know what? That's actually, and that's almost, I wasn't even thinking about it, but he would be a good one for in the running of lowest expectations. From what you asked me that earlier, I think I said Trevor Lawrence. Davis Mills would be another one because literally it's the Houston Texans. It's like they're just you want the ultimate like rebuilding a franchise because they've just been absolutely decimated by horrible coaching decisions by Bill O'Brien and GM decisions by, I think he was also the GM as well. He was coach and GM. Yeah, horrible.
Yeah, coach and part GM. They brought in Nick Caserio like right at the end of his.
That DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson.
No, they didn't do Nick Caserio is after Bill O'Brien. So.
Yeah, but that David Johnson trade for DeAndre Hopkins will go down in history as one of the worst trades.
One of the worst trades ever.
One of the worst trades. And then on top of that, then you have who's their left tackle? Who's a good left tackle?
Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah, and how many picks do they give the Dolphins? Like they gave
him 2 firsts and like a second. Like that.
So many picks.
Yeah, and he's a good left tackle, but he's not.
He's a good left tackle.
Otherworldly.
But he's not, let's trade our entire future. In their defense, the Deshaun Watson thing really messed with them. And now I'm not talking about all these allegations they're going now, but him just deciding I'm not going to play for you anymore.
Yeah, that ruined
after they just signed him. That definitely ruined probably any plans that they did have. Because Deshaun Watson, as much as I don't like saying it, but is one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he's in form. But all around, great question. Even I feel bad. I forgot about Davis Mills, but
I didn't. We were just only talking about the first round guys. So,
but that just goes to show the state of the Texans organization and where they're at right now. Because the AFC, you can go through all the AFC teams and their quarterbacks right now and how loaded they are, including like now Russell Wilson is now with Denver, absolutely loaded, and I just kind of forgot that the Texans existed just because they're just going to be just a footnote on these guys' schedules, like all the really good teams. That's where they should be. I would love to be proven wrong. Love to see Davis Mills come out and then throw for 4,000 yards this year.
But I definitely think he can.
Yeah.
So, but all in all, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of the Tracy Take. We are approaching an hour and 6 minutes. So we appreciate you guys for watching. We appreciate all the comments today by you guys. We love the support. Any support that we can get, we would love to have it. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. And we are going to go live every Monday around 9:00, 9:30. And yeah, we will see you guys next time.